navigated out there. So you were detained in Pakistan in 2002, and you spent some time in Bagram and some time in Guantanamo. So was there, when the invasion happens in 2001, there's obviously a lot of cheering, a lot of jingoism, and a lot of optimism, indeed, well-intentioned optimism that this is sort of going to bring a new era in Afghanistan where there's going to be a rule of law, democracy, human rights. How were you perceiving that at the time, both prior to arrest and whilst being arrested?
There's two things about that. One is that when I was taken by the Americans from my home in Pakistan, it was in front of my family. They took me literally and flew me back to Afghanistan.
Okay.
They took me to Kandahar. I visited Kandahar once. So I didn't know the place well, but they took me to the Kandahar Air Base, and there they built a makeshift prison where they started bringing all the prisoners that they were bringing in. So that was the first time that I was in Afghanistan in US military custody. And I remember when they came in, the Americans, obviously I was able to speak English with them. A lot of the Afghans and the other Arab prisoners couldn't. And they were they were gloating. They were talking about, we came in, we kicked ass, we did X, Y, Z. I sort of smiled to myself. I said, these people, they fought the Soviet Union, and they broke its back. The Soviet Union broke its back in Afghanistan, and you really don't realize where you are. So they said, people were throwing flowers at us when we came in, and we were liberators. And I thought to myself, you'll see soon those flowers will turn into stones, and those stones will then turn into grenades, because nobody ever, especially Afghans, if you know anything about them, tolerates or respects or welcomes an occupying force. And at the time, it felt like, yes, this is it. Afghanistan has been completely annihilated. The Taliban have annihilated. The place has been dominated by foreign forces. It's all over. That's what the feeling was. And they expressed that by abusing us, by torturing us. And of course, the majority of the prisoners I was held with were Afghans. And they humiliated me in ways that I think that even the Russians may not have, because they may have had some cultural understanding, because Uzbekistan and Tajikistan and all these regions were still connected part of the Soviet Union. Americans had no clue at all, so they would strip us naked, shave our beards off, shave our hair off, parade us, take pictures, kick us while we're praying, put their boots on our heads while we're in the midst of sajda, rip the Quran in front of us and throw it into the toilet. And doing this, they thought they were breaking our resolve. But the problem is that these Afghans, most of them were innocent, were going back home. And when they went back home, they said, look what America did to our people. Look what America did to the Quran. Look what America did to us. Look what they... And they ignited amongst some of these people, some of them who were not Taliban, a hatred of the Americans that didn't exist before. And I think they learned this lesson after many years, but it was too late. The job had been done. And I think I saw a recent interview with I don't know if you've been watching this thing. It's on Channel 4. It's called Who Dares Wins.
I haven't watched that.
Right. So it's these 4 ex-SAS guys who do this kind of celebrity show where they put people through their paces and see if they can survive 2 weeks of SAS training. So one of these guys, SAS guys, he goes and interviews one of the Taliban leaders as part of a show he's doing, and he asks the man, he said, "What did you think of us?" And the man said, "The moment you started to send people to Guantanamo and torture them was the day that we knew we would never give up against you." And he also says, the man says, "We fought the Taliban for 14 years and we couldn't defeat them." So that's kind of my analysis.
Yeah,
of those,
because it's right directly from an SAS officer.
Right, exactly, yeah, exactly.
And the thing is that the problem, as it is now described mainly in mainstream media, and what happens with history is that certain historic events, after a while, they get a whole new interpretation. So there is a lot of revisionism going on right now about what happened in 2001 and how the American invasion has resulted in a new status quo in Afghanistan. But there is very little reflection on how these problems were actually created. Like, for instance, in Afghanistan, the fact that the Taliban have become so powerful is always attributed to Pakistan. It is said that Pakistan is helping the Taliban, and that's why Taliban are powerful. They don't mention how torture, bombardments, night raids in people's homes. One of the most terrifying thing for an Afghan is if someone humiliates or insults his family, his wife, his mother, his daughters. And what happened in 2011 and in 2001 is that there was a process where they systematically humiliated people, and that sense of humiliation has resulted in this insurgency that is going on till today. But this is not how it's being addressed. This is not how they talk about it. In Afghanistan, especially the Afghan mainstream media, which is by and large financed by USAID and other foreign entities, they keep saying that the Taliban exists because Pakistan is supporting them. They don't mention the role of American government, foreign troops, and obviously our own current Afghan government. This is not being discussed. So this is something that needs to be addressed. And this is also one of the reasons why we want to talk to you, because obviously you have a different experience.
I think there are... Yeah, Moazzam.
I'm sorry, it's an absolutely brilliant point, because people have spoken about how the Taliban was supported by Pakistan and so forth. Pakistan plays often a double game, as we know. If Pakistan supported the Taliban, then why did it hand so many of them over to the Americans, including those who sat in Guantanamo Bay and then later came out in 2014 to actually negotiate the peace deal? Pakistan is the country that handed them over. Pakistan handed me over. I'm a dual Pakistani-British citizen. Pakistan handed so many people, and then Pakistan launched its own war on terrorism, in which they started to disappear hundreds and thousands of people, killed thousands of people in the Northwest Frontier Province region, and that war only ended just now with Imran Khan. Otherwise, that war was going to continue. So it doesn't make sense. On the one hand, it's like Malcolm X says, you don't take a knife and stab it in a person's back 9 inches deep, then pull it back 6 inches and say we've made progress. Pakistan is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Pakistan actually was a willing participant. It killed thousands of its own people. It allowed the drone strikes. I was in Afghanistan when I saw the cruise missiles come over Pakistani airspace and land in and around Kabul. That was with Pakistani permission.
Yeah.
I reject this idea that Pakistan has been. If you call that support, then I'd like to see what is atrocity.
Yeah, and I think when Sangar, there's a point to be made here, and the popular perception and popular imagination are obviously very powerful currents in policy making. So when we hear that Pakistan is supporting the Taliban, or they're doing this or they're doing that, and this is why the Taliban are so powerful, even if we were to take the angle that Pakistan supports the Taliban, even that's a massive if, what do we then say of 45 or so NATO countries helping the government in Kabul? And when the Pakistan's role in handing over Taliban to the Americans is so great that even a diplomat, the Afghan ambassador to Pakistan at the time, Mullah Zaif, was not immune to being dragged off to Guantanamo and being tortured for quite a few years. And I mean, coming back to popular perception, these same people, either they or their fathers fought the Soviets, who were known for desecrating religious, holy religious symbols and whatever. So when they see Americans, or they hear from, their elders that Americans are doing the same thing, it lights a fuse in their head. It goes, there's a continuity as they see it. So
I want to tell you a little story, brothers, and that is that when I was held in Bagram, so I was moved from the Kandahar detention facility and then moved to Bagram. And in Bagram, we were held in a warehouse that would be converted into a prison, and it had been built by the Russians. So you could still see the machinery, old machinery, writing still in Russian all on the walls. And it was shocking. I mean, the soldiers didn't get it because most of them were young. But I got it, and a lot of the prisoners got it. Is that two superpowers occupy one of the poorest countries in the world and cannot, both in the end lose. They do not win. I met with brother, his brother, I remember to this day, his name was Sharif. He lost one eye. He was with me as a prisoner. We spoke together. We used to whisper conversations because they used to torture us if we spoke loudly. And he used to teach women. He was a teacher of women. He said he used to do classes for women in his house at the time for English at the time of the Taliban. And again, there's another evidence of they didn't do anything to him. He told me that his father was buried alive by the Soviets in Bagram, in the very same place now where he was. And Sharif told me, I remember this day, that he said, do they really think that when I leave this place, I'm going to go home and sing the praise of the Americans? He said, it's in my blood to fight these occupiers.
Yes, I mean, that's pretty. Let's hope and pray that Sharif managed to actually escape.
No, he was
whatever.
Released.
Okay, sure.
Released.